You know, it's it's pretty wild to think that ChatGPT just dropped version 4.5 like right to their subscribers, the ones paying for it, the top tier.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone's saying that this is like the last stop before AI can actually like reason like a person can, like
Yeah.
thinking machines.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to wrap your head around,
It is.
especially when you're trying to like stay on top of everything and not get like completely overwhelmed by how much is coming out.
For sure. It's moving so fast, and I think that's exactly why we wanted to kind of dive into this particular presentation.
Yeah.
This was from the Friday SLO Talks that are organized by Coaches, the California Outcomes Assessment Hub.
Right. And this wasn't just like a bunch of people like theorizing about AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was a conversation with like real assessment professionals, the people who are doing the work every day.
Right on the ground.
Led by Dr. Jarek Janio from Santa Ana College and Enrique Jauregui from Fresno City College.
They were moderating this discussion.
They were really trying to get at like, what does AI mean for our work?
Yeah, what does this look like practically?
Practically.
Yeah.
And the presenter, Dr. Gavin Henning, I mean, he's got like a ton of experience with this stuff.
He really does. He's a professor of higher education at New England College.
Yeah.
And for over 25 years, he's been working in assessment and institutional research.
And his whole focus has been on making assessment easier and more effective.
Yeah.
And he's written like all these important books in the field,
Oh, yeah. He's a real expert.
Student Affairs Assessment Theory to Practice and Reframing Assessment to Center Equity.
Mm-hmm.
So when he talks about how we might use this new tech, he's coming at it from a place of like really deep understanding of assessment.
Yeah, he gets it.
So I guess what makes this deep dive relevant for our listeners is, this is like your shortcut to understanding how AI could become your supercharged assessment assistant.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially if you're working in higher ed assessment.
Yeah, cut through the hype, get to the practical
applications.
So let's get into it, like what happened in the presentation.
Sure.
So Dr. Henning, he starts off by like taking the pulse of the room, right?
Yeah.
He does a couple of polls right at the beginning.
That's right. He wanted to know what the audience's experience was with assessment and with AI. What stood out to you about what he found out about the people in the audience?
Well, it was really interesting to see just how engaged the attendees were with both assessment practices and AI technologies.
Okay.
A lot of them said that they had, some or even a lot of experience in both areas.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't just a basic introductory session. These were people who are already working with this stuff.
They're already in the trenches.
Yeah, exactly.
So these weren't just people like interested in, what are the buzzwords? What is this all about?
Right.
These were people who were really trying to figure out how AI can work for them.
Exactly. How do I use it in my work?
Yeah. And that was clear from the types of AI tools they were already using.
Right. And it wasn't just one or two. It was a really wide range.
Yeah.
Of course, ChatGPT came up a lot.
Sure.
But we also heard about Copilot.
Okay.
Gemini Midjourney, which is used for creating images.
Oh, cool.
Google's NotebookLM Gamma for putting together presentations.
Okay.
And even some research-focused tools like Elicit and Scholar AI.
So it really showed how quickly these tools are being used in higher ed.
Yeah, absolutely. They're becoming integrated into all these different workflows.
Okay, so we've got this engaged audience who's already using AI, and then Dr. Henning, he moves into like his framework. He's breaking down the assessment process, and he's saying, here's where AI could be useful.
He laid it all out.
Let's start with like developing learning outcomes. How did he see AI playing a role there?
Yeah, so he talked about a few key ways that AI could be helpful.
No.
One was using AI to just generate initial drafts of learning outcomes.
Okay.
So say you've got like a course description or a program overview. You could feed that into AI and it could come up with some potential outcome statements.
Oh, wow.
He also said it could be used to refine existing outcomes.
Yeah.
To make them clearer and more measurable.
Makes them better.
Exactly.
Which is something we all struggle with, right?
Oh, for sure. We're always trying to improve those outcomes.
It makes sense because, sometimes just getting that first version written down is the hardest part.
It can be really daunting just to start.
Yeah. And then you can go back and refine it and make it better.
Exactly. And he also said that this could be really helpful for people who are newer to assessment.
Oh, yeah, totally. Because it's like you don't have to start from scratch.
Right. It takes away that fear of the blank page.
Yeah. And what I thought was really interesting is he talked about using AI to explore different frameworks for learning.
Yes.
Not just Bloom's taxonomy.
Not just Bloom.
He mentioned Fink's taxonomy of significant learning, which looks at the whole learning experience more broadly.
It's a more holistic view.
And even Fever's medicine wheel.
Yeah.
Which is a more culturally relevant perspective.
All right. It brings in different ways of knowing and understanding.
So it's not just about like being stuck in our old ways of thinking about learning objectives.
Exactly. It opens up possibilities.
Yeah. So what about rubrics?
Oh, yeah.
Because those can be like such a pain to create.
They're so time consuming.
Yeah. And a lot of people dread doing them.
I know, I do.
So how did Dr. Henning see AI helping with rubrics?
Well, he pointed out that AI could be used to generate rubrics from scratch.
Wow.
But also to give feedback on existing rubrics.
Oh, that's cool.
To help make them clearer and more effective.
So it's not just about like spitting out a rubric. It can actually like analyze a rubric and say, hey, you could improve this part.
Exactly. It can help you make it better.
And he also said that ChatGPT can format those rubrics.
Yes.
And even let you download them as a Word document.
Which is super convenient.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. A lot of rubrics that faculty create aren't as effective as they could be. So this could really improve the quality.
Yeah, because you're basically starting from a much better place than like a blank template.
Yeah, you're building on a solid foundation.
Yeah. And he also mentioned using AI for alignment checks.
Oh, yeah. He talked about that briefly.
So just making sure that all the different parts of the assessment are actually working together,
Yeah, making sure the learning outcomes, the activities, and the assessments are all aligned.
Like they're all on the same page.
Exactly. All moving towards the same goals.
Okay, so moving on to actually designing how we collect data.
Right.
Which can be another area where things get really complicated.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
What did Dr. Henning say about AI's role there?
Well, he thought AI could be a big help in designing the whole data collection process.
Okay.
So it could suggest the right methods for different outcomes.
Okay.
And even help write the actual instruments, things like interview guides, focus group questions, survey questions, things like that.
So it could save a ton of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just imagine like AI helping you write those really good open-ended questions for a focus group.
Right. Or even just getting you started with a basic framework for your survey.
That would be a game changer.
It would make things so much easier.
But when it came to analyzing the data that we collect,
yeah,
I remember him being a bit more cautious.
Right. He was a little hesitant there.
Why is that?
Well, he acknowledged that AI could definitely suggest different types of analysis, like statistical analysis or thematic analysis. But he said he prefers to use actual statistical software for the actual number crunching. His concern was about data security and also the fact that large language models are really designed for language, not necessarily for doing complex statistics.
Right, it's not really built for that.
Yeah.
But he did see a role for AI in synthesizing feedback.
Yes, especially when it comes to meta assessment.
And just to remind our listeners, what is meta assessment?
It's basically assessing our assessment practices.
Right. So like looking at the big picture of how our assessment is working.
Exactly. And Dr. Henning thought AI could be really helpful for that.
How so?
Well, imagine you could take a bunch of feedback from student work or course evaluations or program reviews.
Yeah.
And you could feed it all into AI.
Okay.
And it could identify themes, common strengths, and areas for improvement.
Oh, wow.
So you could get a really good overview of how your assessment efforts are working.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's like having an AI assistant to help you make sense of all that feedback.
So what about reporting on assessment findings?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people find that really time-consuming.
It can be a huge task.
So did Dr. Henning have any ideas about how AI could help with reporting?
He did. He actually saw a lot of potential for AI to save time and effort in reporting.
Okay.
Well, he talked about being able to put your data and your analysis into AI and have it generate a whole report, including creating tables and charts. And that's actually a feature that's been added to ChatGPT recently.
Oh, wow.
He also mentioned tools like Gamma, which are specifically designed for creating slide decks from text. Okay. And you can even use ChatGPT to generate images for those reports.
So basically, AI can help you go from like raw data to a polished visual report.
Exactly. It can streamline that whole process.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
And he also talked about program review.
Yes, program review is a big deal in higher ed.
It is. It's a huge undertaking.
It is.
So how did he see AI fitting into that?
Well, he said AI could provide support throughout the whole program review process.
Okay.
For both academic and co-curricular programs.
Okay.
So it could help you outline the steps,
Okay.
compare different program review models, create training materials, even analyze past reports to see if there are any trends or areas that need attention.
So it's like having an AI consultant for program improvement.
Exactly. It can help you see the big picture.
That's really cool. And then he moved on to how we actually use assessment results to make changes.
Right, because that's the whole point of assessment.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about collecting data. It's about using it to improve things.
Right.
So what did Dr. Henning say about AI's role in that?
Well, he talked about how AI could help us strategize how to use our assessment findings.
Okay.
It could help us address requirements from accrediting bodies and even help us identify strategies for equity-centered assessment.
Which is a really important area.
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly important.
And he even mentioned that he's created his own custom GPT specifically focused on equity-centered assessment.
He did. He's really passionate about that.
That's amazing.
It is.
So let's talk about the demonstrations he did,
Okay.
because I think that's where things really get interesting.
Yeah, seeing it in action.
Can you walk us through some of those examples?
Sure. So one of the first things he did was use ChatGPT to create learning outcomes.
Okay.
For like a hypothetical sophomore leadership retreat. But what was really cool is that he specifically asked it to use Fever's medicine wheel.
Oh, wow.
So he was showing how you can direct the AI to use certain frameworks.
Okay, and what kind of outcomes did it come up with?
It generated outcomes that were aligned with all 4 quadrants of the medicine wheel. Cognitive, affective, psychomotor, and spiritual.
Okay.
And it even came up with an integrative outcome.
Wow.
But then he took it a step further and asked ChatGPT to create a case study related to that spiritual outcome.
And did it just create the scenario?
It did, but it also came up with discussion questions and suggestions for how to assess learning.
Oh, wow.
Like a writing assignment, a group discussion prompt, and a self-evaluation tool.
That's really impressive.
It really showed how the AI can not only create content, but also think about pedagogy.
Yeah, how do we actually teach and assess this stuff?
Exactly. And then he showed how you could ask ChatGPT to make a rubric for a reflection paper.
Okay.
And he even told it to include a comments column and to output it as a Word document.
And did it actually work?
It did. It actually produced a properly formatted Word document.
That's so useful.
Yeah, it's really practical.
And I think Dr. Janio even mentioned that you could ask for it in Excel format.
He did, but he said it wasn't as well organized.
Okay. Yeah, the word format definitely seems more user-friendly.
Yeah, for sure.
So another really cool demo was using ChatGPT for qualitative analysis.
Yes. He gave it a sample focus group transcript from like a fictional LGBTQ plus center.
Okay.
And he asked it to find the main themes.
Okay.
And it actually pulled out some meaningful categories.
Like what?
Like how connected the participants felt to the center.
Okay.
What role they saw the center playing on campus, and what key programs and services it offered.
So it was able to like analyze the text and identify patterns.
Yeah, it was really impressive.
So that shows how it could be used to like quickly make sense of qualitative data.
Exactly.
And then maybe one of the most impressive demos was with NotebookLM.
Yeah, that one was really cool.
I remember him being really excited about that one.
Yeah, he was.
What made it so special?
Well, what was different about NotebookLM is that you can upload PDF documents directly into it.
Oh, wow.
And it can do all kinds of things.
Like what?
It can summarize the content, create study guides, answer questions based on the document, and even create a podcast-style audio summary.
A podcast from a PDF.
I know. It's pretty wild.
That's crazy.
And he showed how it worked using a slide deck that had data on student retention over 10 years.
Okay.
And it included the results of a logistic regression.
Oh, wow.
Which is a statistical method for predicting probabilities.
So the AI could actually understand the statistical analysis.
It could, and it narrated it perfectly.
That's really impressive.
It is, and this beta version even has a Q&A feature.
No way.
Yeah. So he asked it to explain logistic regression to a 4-year-old.
Wow. And could it do it?
It did. It actually explained it really clearly.
Wow.
Using an analogy about toys.
That's both amazing and kind of scary.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Like the idea that AI can explain something that complex in such a simple way.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
It really shows how it could make information more accessible.
Exactly.
So then he talked about custom GPPs.
Yeah.
Can you explain what those are and how he's been using them?
Sure. So custom GPTs are basically personalized versions of ChatGPT.
Okay.
That you can create if you have the paid subscription.
Okay.
You can give them specific instructions, upload documents,
Okay.
and even tailor their personality.
Oh, wow. So you can really make them your own.
You can, and Dr. Henning has actually created several custom GPTs for different purposes.
Like what?
Well, he has one for equity-centered assessment,
Okay.
which makes sense given his research.
Yeah.
He also has GPTs for belonging dissertation support research methods, and even one called Corey.
Corey.
Yeah, Corey the stats guy.
What does Corey do?
He helps doctoral students with their stats questions.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and he even has one called Maria the research guide, who helps students with the research process.
That's amazing. So he's really using these custom GPTs to target specific needs.
Exactly. He's making them really practical.
And I think you mentioned before that you can upload documents into these custom GPTs.
Yes, you can upload things like assessment manuals or rubric examples.
What?
So the GPT has all that information to draw on.
And you can even filter the output through a certain lens.
He mentioned critical theory as an example.
You can really customize how the AI responds.
Yeah, you can make it very specific to your needs.
And that brings us back to something Dr. Janio said about how fast AI is developing.
Oh, yeah, he made a really good point about that.
It's moving so quickly.
It is. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, it's not like traditional software where you get updates once a year.
Right.
It's like every week there's something new.
Yeah, it's constant learning.
So Dr. Henning talked about some key considerations and cautions for using AI in assessment.
He did. He had some really good advice.
What were some of the main things he emphasized?
Well, prompt engineering was a big one.
Okay, what's that?
It's basically how you write your prompts to the AI.
Okay.
The more specific and detailed your prompts are,
Yeah.
the better the output will be.
Okay, that makes sense.
So don't just ask vague questions.
Yeah, you have to be clear about what you want.
Exactly.
And he also stressed the importance of reviewing the AI's output carefully.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not just about taking what the AI says as gospel.
Right, you have to use your own judgment.
We still need to think critically.
Yes.
And privacy is obviously a huge issue.
It is, especially when we're dealing with student data.
Right.
So he said we need to be really careful about what we upload into AI tools.
And I think he mentioned that paid versions of some platforms offer more control over data.
He said the paid version of ChatGPT gives you more options for privacy.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And he also talked about some of the limitations of AI.
Yes, like word count limits.
Okay.
And the fact that it might not be the best tool for complex statistical analysis yet.
Right, so it's not a magic bullet.
It's not.
It's a tool that can be really helpful, but it has its limits.
Exactly, and we need to be aware of those limits.
And I think his biggest caution was about not becoming too reliant on AI.
Yes, he said we shouldn't let it replace our own knowledge and expertise.
Right, we still need to understand the fundamentals of assessment.
Absolutely. It's a tool to enhance our work, not replace it.
I love that.
It's a good way to think about it.
And he shared some resources for people who want to learn more.
He recommended Java Jams
Okay.
by Ruth Slotnick and her colleagues.
Okay.
Although that project is finished, there may be some archived materials available.
Okay.
He also mentioned the Alchemy Works AI series,
Okay.
which is a faculty development program focused on AI in education,
Awesome.
and the AI in Education Google group.
Oh, yeah, that's a great resource.
It is. There are a lot of good discussions happening there.
And he briefly touched on the issue of AI and academic freedom.
Yes, he mentioned that some people, especially in the arts, are concerned about their work being used to train AI models without their consent.
Yeah, that's a really complex issue.
It is. It's a big ethical and legal question.
And then he brought it back to the potential of AI for personalized learning.
Yes, he sees a lot of possibilities there.
Right, what?
Well, he talked about AI creating tailored learning pathways for students.
Okay.
And even acting as a 247 tutor.
Oh, wow. So like a virtual tutor that's always available.
Exactly.
But of course, that raises questions about academic integrity.
It does. That's something we need to think carefully about.
Yeah, for sure.
And he mentioned that faculty have been a bit slower to adopt AI than doctoral students.
Why do you think that is?
Well, he said a lot of faculties are worried about students cheating.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Which is a valid concern.
It is.
But he also said that more and more faculty are starting to use AI disclosure statements.
So making it clear to students what's acceptable and what's not.
Exactly, setting those boundaries.
Okay, and finally, what did he say about the paid versions of AI tools?
Well, he basically said that if you're serious about using AI,
Yeah.
the paid version of ChatGPT is worth it.
Okay, why?
You get more features,
Mm-hmm.
fewer limitations, and more flexibility to experiment.
So you can really dive in and explore what it can do.
Exactly.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into Dr. Henning's presentation, what would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners?
Well, I think the main message is that AI has the potential to transform assessment in higher education.
Yeah.
It can make it more efficient, more accessible, and even more equitable.
But it's not a silver bullet.
No, it's a tool.
And we need to use it thoughtfully.
We do. We need to be aware of the benefits and the limitations.
And think about how it fits into our own context.
Exactly.
As the technology's here, the possibilities are exciting.
They are.
But it's really up to us to decide how to use it responsibly.
And ethically.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to consider.
Okay.
As AI continues to evolve so rapidly, how can we as educators integrate these tools in a way that really benefits students and upholds academic integrity without making existing inequalities worse?
That's important.
Or creating new dependencies.
Yes, we don't want to become too reliant on the technology.
Right, we need to find that balance.
Exactly.
So we encourage you to check out the resources Dr. Henning mentioned.